The winter morning in Boston was cold and clear, the kind of morning where the air outside bit at the skin, and the frost clung stubbornly to the corners of window panes. Inside her modest apartment, Melissa Hudson wrapped her hands around a warm cup of tea, watching the pale sunlight filter through the sheer curtains. The light spilled across the room, touching the neat stacks of files on her desk and glinting off the surface of her polished wooden table. Her mornings were always the same, structured, calm, predictable. She found comfort in the repetition, the quiet whistle of the kettle, the faint scratch of her pen as she checked her planner, the soft hum of the heater. Routine was stability, and stability had been her anchor for years. It suited her nature as an accountant, numbers that balanced, reports that matched, days that unfolded without disruption. But this morning carried a weight she couldn't ignore. On the bedside table, resting like a delicate promise, was her engagement ring. The morning light caught the diamond and scattered it across the room in tiny prisms. Melissa slipped it onto her finger, staring at the way it gleamed on her hand. A year ago, she never would have imagined herself here. A year ago, she had convinced herself she would always be the overlooked one, dependable but unremarkable. Now, in just 2 weeks, she was to be married. She exhaled slowly, her breath almost shaky, and began silently ticking through her mental list of preparations. Flowers, dress fitting, guest confirmations, everything seemed under control, everything except one thing. Her family. The thought pressed heavily against her chest. She hadn't yet made the call she'd been dreading. She knew she couldn't delay it any longer. I still need to call my family, she whispered aloud, as though speaking the words would give her courage. Reaching for her smartphone, she hesitated, thumb hovering over her mother's number. Her mind drifted back to the day she'd first shared her engagement news. Melissa. Her father Henry's voice had carried disbelief, as though he couldn't fathom that his plain, steady daughter could have found a match so extraordinary. Her mother, Diane, had echoed the same disbelief with a simple, sharp question, "Really?" And when Melissa had said the name, Ryan Morrison, it had hung in the air like a challenge. In the Hudson family, Melissa had always been the shadow child. Her father Henry, the stern and calculating president of Hudson Properties, was revered in Boston's real estate circles. Colleagues and employees called him the Iron Man for his ruthless efficiency. Her mother, Diane, a former model, still carried herself with practiced elegance, her beauty maintained through weekly spa visits and an unrelenting eye for appearance. Together, they were admired, envied, and respected. Melissa, however, had always been ordinary. Her sister, Jeanette, had inherited Diane's charm and beauty. She moved effortlessly through social gatherings, married a well-known architect, and became the mother of 3 beautiful children. To everyone in the family, she was the golden daughter, the living reflection of perfection. Her brother, Mike, followed their father's path into the business world. Groomed from an early age, he was already being positioned as Henry's successor at Hudson Properties. And then there was Melissa. Brilliant with numbers, hard-working, but always labeled as serious. Her mother's word, delivered with a tight smile, had always sounded more like boring. Her achievements were accepted without praise, but her failures were dissected and discussed at length during family dinners. "Why didn't you think more carefully?" was a refrain she knew all too well. Melissa tightened her grip on the phone. Would this call be any different? Would they treat her wedding, her happiness, as something that finally mattered? Or would it become just another moment for comparison, another reminder that she was never enough in their eyes? Summoning her courage, she dialed her mother's number. The call connected. "Hello, Melissa, I'm a bit busy right now. I'll call you back later." Her mother's voice was brisk, impatient. Behind her words, Melissa could hear laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of a busy restaurant. "I'm sorry, Mom," Melissa said quickly, trying not to sound like she was intruding. "I just wanted to confirm about the wedding." "Of course, we're coming." Diane's tone was clipped, edged with sarcasm. "After all, you've made a good choice for the first time in your life. You're very lucky that a man like Ryan chose you." The words stung, but Melissa stayed silent. She'd learned long ago that defending herself only led to deeper cuts. "The lobster here is exceptional, Diane." A familiar voice floated through the background, Jeanette's. Melissa's heart sank. "Are you with Jeanette?" she asked quietly. Yes, just a little mother-daughter lunch. Diane's tone softened, but only slightly. You must be busy, right? Make sure you take care of your work. Her mother's eagerness to end the call was obvious. Melissa felt the words rise in her throat. It would have been nice if you had invited me, too, but she swallowed them back. She knew better than to expect inclusion. Yes, then I'll see you at the wedding, she said evenly, forcing composure into her voice. When the call ended, silence rushed back into her apartment, pressing down heavier than before. Melissa set the phone on the counter and stood for a moment, staring at nothing. Then, as if on instinct, she made her way to the kitchen, poured herself a fresh cup of coffee, and tried to push away the ache building in her chest. Would they actually come? Or would they find an excuse, like they had on her birthday last year, when urgent matters had kept them from even calling? Melissa shook her head, as though physically rejecting the spiral of thoughts. If they don't come, then so be it. What matters now is Ryan, my future with him, not the past that has always hurt me. But deep down, buried beneath the layers of practiced strength and quiet resilience, she carried a longing she couldn't let go of. Just once, she wished her family would look at her the way they looked at Jeanette. Just once, she wanted to be blessed, to be cherished, to be seen. Ryan's eyes carried a playful glimmer, though there was something beneath it, an anticipation that made Melissa's pulse quicken. The car rolled smoothly through the quiet streets, leaving the familiar bustle of downtown Boston behind. As they crossed into Beacon Hill, the world seemed to shift. Brick sidewalks lined with gas lamps glowed warmly against the gathering dusk, and elegant townhouses stood in orderly rows, their windows spilling golden light into the crisp evening air. Melissa pressed her face slightly toward the glass, watching the scenery transform. The neighborhoods they passed grew larger, grander. Soon, the car turned down a tree-lined avenue where the houses no longer looked like homes but monuments, testaments to history and wealth. Her fingers tightened nervously around her clutch. The car slowed, then came to a stop before a sprawling stone mansion, its facade bathed in soft exterior lights. Iron gates swung open at their arrival, and Melissa's breath caught in her throat. A long driveway wound past carefully manicured gardens and a fountain that sparkled in the moonlight. "We're here," Ryan said simply, as the driver stepped out to open the door. Melissa hesitated, then placed her hand in Ryan's, allowing him to guide her out. The mansion rose before her, 3 stories of timeless grandeur, its architecture marrying historical solidity with subtle modern renovations. Vines climbed the stone walls gracefully, as though time itself had tried to soften its power. Her eyes widened. "Where is this?" Ryan smiled, his expression unreadable. "This is our new home." Melissa's lips parted, but no words came. A rush of disbelief and confusion swept over her. "You're joking," she finally managed, her voice trembling. "We can't afford something like this, Ryan." "How?" He only squeezed her hand, gently but firmly, and led her toward the entrance. "Let's go inside. I'll explain everything." The heavy wooden doors opened, and Melissa stepped into a world she had only seen in magazines. A marble floor gleamed beneath her feet, stretching into a grand foyer crowned by a crystal chandelier. Antique furniture, elegant yet lived in, lined the hall. Paintings, real works of art, not reproductions, watched silently from the walls. Each piece carried history, weight, permanence. Melissa stood still, her mouth slightly open, trying to process it all. "Ryan, what is this?" Her voice echoed faintly in the vast space. He placed a steadying hand on her back. "Come with me." He guided her into a living room where a fire crackled softly in the stone fireplace. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a sweeping view of Boston's night skyline, the city lights shimmering like distant stars. Ryan poured her a glass of wine, handed it to her, then sat across from her with a serious expression. "Melissa," he began slowly, "there's something I haven't told you." Her heart dropped at the gravity in his tone. "My family isn't just executives at an IT company," he continued. "My grandfather was a pioneer in the tech industry. He built an empire, an investment group known as the Morrison Foundation. And his gaze met hers directly. I am the main heir." Melissa froze, staring at him, the words circling in her head but refusing to land. "The heir?" she repeated. Ryan nodded. But you've always lived so simply. He leaned forward, taking her hands in his. His voice softened, vulnerable. Because I wanted to, Melissa. I needed to know that someone could love me for who I am, not for my name, not for the fortune. I was tired of people chasing after money and status. So, I chose to live quietly, as an ordinary CFO. His eyes searched hers. And then I found you. Melissa swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. The Ryan she knew was successful, yes, but approachable, grounded. She had never once imagined he carried such weight on his shoulders. She laughed faintly, almost to calm herself. That's why your suits were always perfect. I used to think you just had really good taste. Ryan chuckled, the tension easing for a moment. Perhaps my only luxury at the time. But why now? Why tell me this? His expression sobered again. When your family didn't come to the wedding, I made a decision. I will never let you feel unwanted or abandoned again. And if we're to start a new life together, there can be no secrets between us. The firelight flickered across his face, casting shadows that made his sincerity unmistakable. That evening stretched long into the night as Ryan unfolded the truth piece by piece. He explained the Morrison Foundation, how it spanned the globe, investing in technology, energy, real estate, and more. He spoke of responsibilities, board meetings, and the reach of his family's empire. And then, in quiet certainty, he told her what it meant for her. She was now a shareholder in multiple corporations, tied to a legacy that had shaped industries. Melissa's head swam. She turned her wineglass slowly in her hands, staring at the ruby liquid. This is too much, she admitted softly. I still can't grasp it. Ryan leaned closer, his voice gentle. Take your time. Nothing changes between us. I am still the same Ryan. My reasons for loving you haven't changed. Melissa nodded, though a storm of emotions churned inside her, gratitude, awe, fear, even a thread of unease. Her life had been simple, orderly, predictable. This was a world entirely foreign to her. Suddenly, a thought struck her. Ryan, is there any connection between your family's investments and my father's company? His brows lifted slightly in surprise. Actually, yes, he admitted. Hudson Properties is financed, in part, by our group. But Melissa, he quickly added, that arrangement has existed since before I ever met you. It has nothing to do with us. Melissa forced a small smile. I was just curious. But inside, she felt a pang of irony. The father who dismissed her, the family who overlooked her, unknowingly tied to the man who had chosen her above all else. Any other questions? Ryan asked, his tone soft, as if he knew how overwhelmed she must feel. That's enough for now. She managed a smile. It's just our lives are going to change so much, aren't they? Ryan moved beside her, his presence grounding her. Only in where we live, in some of the obligations we'll have. But us? Our relationship? That doesn't change. Not ever. He brushed a hand against her cheek. And Melissa, if you want to keep working as an accountant, you can. If you want to do something else entirely, you can. Your choices will always be your own. Her chest tightened with emotion. Being an accountant had always been part of her identity, her stability. But now, the possibilities stretched out before her in ways she had never dared to imagine. I'll need time to think, she whispered honestly. Of course, he said, pressing a kiss to her hair. Whatever you decide, I'll be by your side. Later that night, in the vastness of their new bedroom, Melissa lay awake, staring at the ornate ceiling. Only days ago, she had been a woman dismissed by her family, struggling for scraps of recognition. Now she stood at the threshold of a life most could never fathom: marriage, betrayal, and a revelation that had shifted the ground beneath her feet. Turning her head, she looked at Ryan, sleeping peacefully beside her. His face was calm, open, and she remembered why she loved him, not for what he had, but for who he was. Her gaze drifted to the window, where stars sparkled against the night sky. For the first time, she considered that her family's absence at her wedding might not have been a curse, but a hidden blessing. Had they come, perhaps Ryan would have delayed revealing his truth, and she would still be blind to the future waiting for her. Yet another thought gnawed quietly at her: her father's empire, dependent on the very foundation her husband now revealed. Fate had an irony sharper than any blade. She would never use this knowledge against them, but knowing it changed everything. Melissa drew in a long, steady breath and closed her eyes. Whatever tomorrow held, luxury, scrutiny, responsibilities she had never asked for, she would walk forward, not alone, but with Ryan, and that gave her courage.